What is going on, guys? Welcome to a review for the most recent, or the last movie in the Heaven's Feel trilogy. This is Fate Stay Night, Heaven's Feel Part 3, Spring Song. With me, as always, I have Loosepade. We had to wait a long time for this one. If you remember, on my old channel, we did do reviews of the first two movies, like spoiler reviews of it. We had, unfortunately, we had to wait a long time in between the last movie and this one. Because of the coronavirus.
Thanks to the pandemic, kind of upended everything that we wanted to do. I think it was originally supposed to come out in April for us, but then like that got postponed, and then of course Japan had to postpone it. Like literally the day before they were officially going to show it at in their theaters, they had to shut down and then postpone it for months, and then until they released it, I think a couple months ago. So, and then we were finally able to watch it last night, considering the fact that most of the places were starting to shut down again.
Yeah, fortunately, so there is a theater that's open that's about a little over 5 minutes away from me, so it was pretty convenient.
Well, for my case, I literally had to go through 3 different theaters to find to go to watch this movie. Like the first 2 theaters I bought tickets to immediately refunded my money, and then I found one more place, and it's oh please God, don't shut down at the last minute. And thankfully I was able to watch that movie alongside many other people that was in there, socially distanced, thankfully, but it's just a stroke of luck that I managed to watch this movie at the last
with
minute.
Me, of course, I bought the ticket online, and usually I don't really buy tickets online. I'll just buy it at the box office there. But I bought, of course, with these you have to buy it online, so I bought mine online, and I'll usually don't really have any problems with scanning the QR code. But I tried to go into where the person who would scan the ticket is, and there's nobody there. I tried scanning it, and it said invalid on the screen, and I tried to do it myself, and I eventually just said screw it, because I the way I see it is I already bought the ticket, I already paid my money. If there's nobody in, there's nobody around, so I'm just gonna go ahead in, and that's what I did. I just run into the theater. Also surprising is that there wasn't that many people there. I think, if I could guess, there's maybe about 10 people watching the movie with me. And when I looked on the website, it was the tickets are sold out for this showing, which is kind of surprising because, like I said, there wasn't that many people there. But I guess that it's a good thing because there are less people. But I was kind of surprised by that too. But other than that, it was wasn't a bad experience. Wasn't anything, didn't have any problems or anything. I know at least one time, I think when I saw the first movie, there was technical issues. They had technical issues. I don't know why. There's actually been 2 different occasions where I would go to see an anime movie. The one was the first Fate Stay Night, Heaven's Feel movie, and then the other time it was Weathering with You, and they were having issues with the screen or something, or no, it wasn't that. They started the movie, and then I guess it froze or something. I don't know what happened. They moved us to another another screen because they were having issues with it or something, and they're oh, you can either leave and we'll refund you, or you can go to the other showing or whatever, or they were showing one in Japanese and one in English or something, one with the English dub, and they got I guess confused about which one was which. I don't know, it was a mess, but I don't know what the hell what the problem is with them showing anime movies in theaters. Is out of the experiences I've had, maybe a couple of them went well, this one included, but the other 2 was there was some kind of issue, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what was happening right now, it's an unusual circumstance that we're dealing with. Yeah, but thankfully we were able to watch this. It was worth the trouble, in my case, in just trying to find the screen to finally watch this movie after all this time, and it was definitely worth the wait.
Yeah, I would honestly, like I said, I would have to say this is probably my favorite out of the trilogy. If I were to rank it, I would say this is the best one. The second best is the first movie, and then the second one is probably not to say it's bad, but my least favorite, just because I felt that one it wasn't quite as faithful as an adaptation as the other 2. I felt like there was more that was left out of the second movie. But yeah.
But yeah, so the movie immediately just picks up, right after the events of part 2. Shiro just immediately arrives to Sakura's room, where he finds Shinji just dead on the bed. And then of course Zoken just immediately comes in and starts taunting Shiro about about what role like Sakura played in killing Shinji and how far she's fallen, to the darkness.
Yeah, this does happen in the original visual novel, but I don't know if Zoken himself like materializes there. I think he Shiro just hears his voice, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and then but shortly afterwards, Zoken immediately tries to attack him, and then Ryder arrives just in time to get him out of there. I think this scene in the visual novel was a bit longer because I think Shiro investigates a little bit more of the mansion. I think I could be wrong, but doesn't he find the worm room in the visual novel, or did they cut that out? Because I feel like he did.
I don't know. I think I forgot that part. But yeah, I think that would have taken too much time.
I don't have a problem with them cutting that part out because they don't really. It's not that important.
I mean, if we remember in the last film, I think Kirei was the one who told Shiro and Rin
about that. Yeah, Shiro does know about it.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, he knows about it. He just, I don't think there would be any point of him investigating something he already knew from Kirei in the first place. But yeah, so they immediately try to rush back, to Shiro's estate, and then of course Rin and Ilya are both there, and then they're immediately, well, of course, Dark Sakura, immediately arrives, and pretty much she just immediately takes out Rin when she tries to attack her.
Yeah, she basically, Dark Sakura tries to attack Rin, and Rin does end up getting injured. What else?
I think both Ryder and Shiro both arrive there in time. And then of course Ryder tells Sakura that she was the one who ordered her to protect Shiro at all costs, because if you remember at the end of the last film, she used her last command spell to order Ryder to protect Shiro, like you said, at all cost. And then as soon as Ryder's about to confront Sakura, she immediately gets stabbed in the back by Saber Alter.
Yeah, Saber stabs her in the back. And I think that's pretty much when Iliasville steps in and is it's me you want, so take me with you, because I can show you where, she says something where the final key is, or something like that, it's at my mansion.
Pretty much using her as a catalyst to summon the Holy Grail, what happened, like what happened to Iris Field back in Fate Zero.
Yeah, so of course they end up taking Ilya, and but before Saber leaves, she's I think she says you got lucky this time, there won't be a next time, and they all leave. Or they lead through a portal.
And then immediately afterwards, Shiro takes Rin over to Kirei's church for help, and I think this next scene, I think they recap. Well, they sort of recap what happened in the last two films,
and they kind of tease Avenger, or the I guess the what would have been Avenger, the I don't know what you would call that thing, the thing that basically they try to summon at the end of this movie.
Yeah, and of course, soon afterwards, Kirei offers to help Shiro by pretty much driving him over to the Einspring Castle. On the way there, Kirei pretty much elaborates everything he knows about Kiritsugu, saying that if Kiritsugu was still alive, he would have killed Sakura right on the spot.
Yeah, he's right though. Like, yeah, Kiritsugu would have done that, and Kirei did know Kiritsugu pretty well, but yeah, Shiro in this, like, as you know, people know in this route, Shiro of course learns the truth about his father and who he really was, and he kind of, you know, it kind of makes a point to not be the same kind of person his father was, at least in regards to like the side of Kiritsugu he did not know about until this route.
Yeah, and of course, like, eventually they reach the castle, and then they find, you know, several like lit portions of the castle, and then Shiro uses his ability to track where Eliasville is. So they they actually end up climbing up to, you know, to the side of the window, and then Kirei just immediately throws him in the room.
I'm surprised he has no cuts on him, like, after he gets thrown through the window like that. Like, he's totally fine.
Yeah, I don't know why. Or maybe it's because like he has like
I assume he maybe hardened himself. I don't know, like, because I know he can like reinforce things, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, Kirei's excuse is because, like, you know, Shiro is constantly handicapped with that one arm he's always using. But then, like,
oh well, he could have.
You know, of course, like,
I guess he could have used Archer's arm possibly to like soften the blow. Like, his Archer's arm could have probably taken it.
Yeah, but I don't know. He wasn't able to use it like literally until the end. But you know, first they managed to convince Eliasville to come with them, and then they of course leave the two maids behind in the castle. Soon afterwards, Sakura notices this and then immediately just destroys the castle. So everyone just immediately makes a run for it, and soon afterwards, like, Berserker,
before this happened, too, like, I will say I liked that in this movie, because this is one of my complaints about Lost Butterfly, is that they didn't really show that many scenes between like Shiro and Eliasville as I would have liked them to have shown. But in this one, they kind of make up for it because there are more scenes, more of the emotional scenes between like Shiro and Eliasville, and they really double down on their like the sibling bond that they have, which I like, because they didn't like. I was hoping they would do that in the second movie, but they seem to have made up for it in this one.
Yeah, but yeah. So shortly afterwards, like I said, they are being pursued by Dark Berserker, which honestly I don't even know how I feel about, you know. The
yeah,
CG
it does look weird.
Berserker.
Like, that's one of the complaints I will say. Like, Dark Berserker, I don't really know how I feel about the way they did him in this movie. He does look really strange.
Well, on the way, like, they're also being pursued by Assassin as well, and then Kirei is the one who's trying to fend him off. I mean, he does his best, but then like they immediately go to like I think like an abandoned church in that same location. So Kirei like tries to fight him off, and then he gets stabbed like on several places. And then Assassin uses his Zabania Noble Phantasm to crush his heart, but he finds out, like, you know, if I remember correctly, Kirei doesn't really have much of a heart left after the events.
Yeah, when I saw this, I was a little bit confused because it has been a long time since I read the visual novel, so I was trying to remember, like, why didn't that work? And then they reminded us, of course, of what happened in the in Fate Zero, where Kirei just was corrupted by the Grail. So that's basically why that technique doesn't really work on him.
And of course, like, he manages to subdue Assassin long enough for him to reach Zoken, like, at the top of the church, for him to use his ability to I guess he destroys Zoken's body. I don't really remember this part too
clearly from the original visual novel either, so I was a little bit confused, but I was like, I guess it's just some form of magecraft he can use or something. So he tries to use it to basically just completely destroy Zoken.
I mean, I would say it's more holy magic, if anything. Like, magic. Yeah. So he destroys Zoken's body, and then there was also some scenes, and he recalls his wish for the Grail, and then he goes back, to what happened to him in the past, and then we see scenes of his wife Claudia as well.
Yeah. So okay.
Then
The way this plays out, as far as I know, in the original, like, I think his wife was already dead in this flashback in the original, and Kirei is basically just, like, saying, I love somebody once, and I think it was after she died. But here we actually see that happen, and she kills herself. And I was a little bit confused by this, because I don't know why she killed herself. I don't know if you have any theories as to why that could have happened, but, like, I
don't know. Maybe I think they decided to do that as a more, as a more effective way of storytelling. Yeah. In terms of Kirei's backstory.
Because Kirei did say I would kill myself or whatever. But
yeah, but she killed herself in front of Kirei, and then he just, as we know, he had almost no reaction to that.
Yeah,
and then
it also does. We also Kirei had a child, but. That's not. We don't really see anything about Kirei's child until like Fate Holo Atraxia or some of the other Fate spin-offs we've seen her in. Mm-hmm. Which of course, if you don't know, is Karen Hostensia. So that's technically like Kirei's daughter.
Yeah. I mean, unless on a side note, I hope they adapt Holo Ataraxia someday, but it's
either that or
it's probably a story for another time. But yeah. Let's see what else happened, but yeah. So I think the story moves on with Shiro and Ilias feel like trying to get away from Dark Berserker, and then it gets to a point where Shiro finally decides to unwrap Archer's arm to fight against Berserker.
Yeah. How'd you feel about the scene? Like how that scene played out? Like where he was, because at first like Ilia doesn't want him to go, but he asked if he could defeat Berserker, and she gave her approval, and then that's when like he unleashes, like he takes off the shroud, and I kind of like how they did that scene where like he was chasing after Archer, and and like he just jumps off a cliff or something, and then he starts falling from the sky, and then like and then that's when he faces Berserker and starts to project his Berserker's sword.
Yeah, it's like I was surprised at how quick this scene played out and how easily he was able to.
The original goes into way more detail about like how much pain Shiro's in when he's doing this, and like trying to project 9 lives Blade works.
Yeah, and then he manages to quickly defeat Berserker. Then we kind of see Berserker's flashbacks.
Yeah, to be fair, I do think it did happen quickly in the visual novel too. Like, as I think they said, like he only had like one chance to do it because of how much strain it was putting on him. So he could only do it like one shot or something.
Yeah, but yeah, so like Berserker does end up getting defeated in the scene, and then like he asks Shiro to protect Ilia in his place. So that's like the only time we hear Berserker talk like throughout the entire series.
And we see like a brief flashback of him as Hercules.
Mm-hmm. And then of course shortly after Kirei ended up defeating Zoken and Assassin, Sakura comes in again, and she apparently like destroys his I guess his heart from I don't know, maybe his corrupted heart from the last Holy Grail War. She mentions that after she ended up consuming Gilgamesh from the last movie, because both Gilgamesh and Kirei were both corrupted at the same time. So I guess they were both linked in some way.
I think so. Sakura it didn't affect Gilgamesh, didn't it? Or I don't know. Like I think he I think it kind of changed, but he did. I don't know if it corrupted him. Like I think Kirei was the only one that it really corrupted it, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange, but Sakura mentions like that Kirei's link to Gilgamesh is what plays out in this scene in which she crushes his heart, and then just pretty much like leaves him for dead after she finds out that Berserker ended up getting defeated. So shortly afterwards, like I think, what was it? Shiro, Ilia, and Rin get back to the mansion, but we also see Shiro is obviously suffering from like the effects of using that arm.
I think after the scene too, like after he defeats Berserker, we also see Saber Alter appear again. Like, she was going to fight him, but she retreats after hearing Sakura call her back. So basically, if that hadn't have happened, then Shiro would literally be he would be dead. Like there's no way he would be able to do that again.
Yeah. So yeah, they do make it back. And like I said, like Shiro has another dream sequence of him suffering through the effects of the arm, in which like we see like blades literally coming out of his body and then apparently killing him. But that was a dream. Then he reaches into a drawer and he finds Rin's pendant, and then he suddenly just like he acts like he's Archer at one point, saying that it's the one thing precious to him, and then Shiro just like all of a sudden he just realizes like what the hell did I just say?
I'm guessing because of the arm, Archer's personality might be like taking him over in some to some extent. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, because they're both the same person, obviously, but yeah, he's so that's the next part is like they try to come up with a plan to try to defeat Sakura, and then of course what was it? Rin directs him back into the mansion, in which she finds the Zelrix sword that she carried like since the end of Fate Zero, and then Ilya, Rin, and Shiro walk down, and then Ilya elaborates everything that happened back in the origins of the original Holy Grail War, I guess, in which they were the Tosakas, Einsburns, and the Mato families were trying to try to summon Angra Mayu. Yeah. And of course, I think you mentioned back in before we started recording that this was much more detailed and a lot longer. Yeah. But I thought the scene was
you mean the Angra Mayu? Where Ilya is explaining the origins of Angra Mayu. Yeah. I do remember this was a long exposition scene in the visual novel, but I like how they do it here, where basically they're walking along with Ilya, and Ilya is basically explaining how Angra Mayu is basically everybody tried to put all the evils of the world onto one person, and that person was Angra Mayu. It kind of explains more so in the visual novel that Angra Mayu is like the Persian devil or something like that. But they don't really go into as much detail as here. But I think they just covered the important parts, I think. So I didn't really have much of a problem with the scene. I thought they adapted it pretty well. And I think it's after this where they try to get Shiro to project the Tosaka's jewel dagger or whatever it was called. The
Zelrich sword, or jewel sword, whatever that was, and then we both.
This scene happens a bit differently too, because in the visual novel, I think it actually takes place in Shiro's shed, but here they go to the Mato's this underground area in the Mato mansion.
You sure it wasn't the Tosaka mansion?
Maybe it was. It could have been. I don't know. I'm not. I feel like I think it was the shed. I'm pretty sure, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, they go into this underground ritual area, and then, and of course, Shiro and Ilya all see the flashback of the original Tosaka, Einsburn, and Mato, back from way back then. And
this is another thing I was a little bit confused about. Did Ilya see the flashback with Shiro in the visual novel, or was it just Shiro? Because I don't know if Ilya was there.
I mean, she was the one who's directing him to, I don't know, see what was happening at the time, including trying to fast forward at certain points of the flashback in order to find what they were looking for. And then of course, we do see the original origin of the Holy Grail War, in which Tosaka offered the land to be a part of the Battle of the Holy Grail War, and Mato offered to create the command spells in which used to command the servants in the first place. Yeah. And Einsburn, the Einsburn in this one is offers to use herself as a sacrifice to create the Grail itself.
Yeah. I do like how this scene plays out, because I mean, in the visual novel we don't actually see these people, we don't know what they look like, but we know that of course Zoken was there when that happened. So we see like a younger version of Zoken, and we also see like one of the Tosaka ancestors. And at first I was a little bit confused because before I even saw his face, I thought he was actually Waver, because he looks a lot like Waver, but it's not Waver.
Yeah, almost with the long hair, and and the facial structure is like almost similar.
But yeah, the Einsburn woman, like I think her name was Justice Einsburn. But in the original, I think it was just like Shiro had to look at her and like focus on, because I think eventually she holds the dagger. He has to like focus on it so he can project it.
I think one of the priests that was there in the ritual, the way the scene plays out, that the Einsburn was lying down I think on a tablet, and then she gets crushed to death. And then like they use. And then the Tosaka and the Mato, like, pretty much start the ritual and alongside the priest using the Zelrich sword.
Yeah. I don't know if I remember her getting crushed in the visual novel. I'm not really sure how it plays out, but I think as soon as Shiro sees the dagger, like he comes back from the vision, and he all of a sudden he has it. But yeah, of course, like I think that's around the time when Shiro does come back, and he ended up projecting. I guess he ended up projecting the Tosaka's dagger, or the ritual dagger. Yeah,
and I think after the scene we transitioned to Sakura, pretty much suffering through her effects of the corruptions that she's dealing with.
Oh, another thing I should mention too I did like some of the little scenes before that, like I mentioned before, with the scenes with Iliasfeel and Shiro, like where Iliasfeel was asking Shiro like how long he thinks he has, how much longer he thinks he has. So I liked it in this one. They're showing Iliasfeel showing more concern for Shiro, and like more the brother sister bond that they have. But like you said, the next scene is like Sakura. She's basically, I think she's in the cave, and she's like, she's suffering.
And also conflicted in whether or not she should even try to kill Shiro as well. But then she just, all of a sudden she freezes, and then Assassin shows up, and then he finds out that Zoken's still alive inside of her all this time. And then of course Zoken, because of what happened to his body, he decides to use Sakura as his new vessel. But then of course Sakura realizes this, and then she just immediately just digs into her chest and then rips Zoken out of her, and then just shortly before that, Assassin also gets brutally killed by Sakura. Before this, his body just immediately gets torn apart, and then we see his pretty much his whatever's left is his face, or like he's almost like a walking corpse or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then of course afterwards, Sakura ends up absorbing him, and then she rips Zoken out of her chest, and then pretty much kills him by crushing him to death with her hand.
Yeah. Zoken, she snaps the worm's neck or whatever is supposed to be Zoken.
Yeah, but then shortly afterwards, I think there was a brief conversation between Shiro and Ryder, saying, of course, Ryder is reluctant that of the fact that they might end up killing Sakura, but then Shiro decides to convince Ryder that he doesn't plan to kill Sakura, and he wants to save her no matter what. So they managed to gain each other's trust shortly afterwards. So they immediately, Sakura, Ryder, Shiro, and Rin all go to.
Before that happens too, there's also another scene with Tosaka talking to the shadow of Sakura. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah. Basically, Sakura is you should just leave and just let everything happen, or something like that. And but I think because because she doesn't want to kill Shiro and her sister, I guess is what she's trying to get them to leave. But of course Tosaka is no, we're going to stop you. She eventually just, kind of reverts back to being her more evil self, and is like, come and try to do that or something, and it just goes away. Then of course that they end up going to the Ryoto temple, and where Sakura's at is like under the Ryoto temple, and apparently like you can only get the only way you can get there is like it's through some illusionary wall or something. Like there's what looks like part of the hillside there, but it's not really like part of it. It's just like an illusion, I guess. They just like step through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course they managed to reach. Well, actually, the first thing they find is, of course, Saber Alter guarding the area, but then like she allows Rin to go by first because Sakura ordered Saber Alter to let her pass. But then I also remember, like, Saber also asks Sakura what of Ryder and Shiro, and then she never answers. So she assumes like she's ordered to kill Shiro and Ryder at that point. So this leads into like I think one of the best animated scenes in this movie with Ryder fighting against Saber Alter in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's just so much happening in the scene. Like Ryder's just like moving so fast, and and she has to try to take out Saber quickly because like she says she only has like a couple minutes where she would even have a chance to take out Saber.
Yeah, she uses everything in her arsenal besides her blades. She also uses her mystic eyes of petrification to pretty much slow down Saber. It doesn't like kill her. I mean, like we see her like being turned to stone at times, but then Saber like manages to completely break out of it shortly afterwards. Mm-hmm. Then at the end of this fight, like Ryder decides starts charging up for her noble phantasm. Then Shiro comes in at the last minute and then uses Roll Eyes to defend against Saber Alter's Excalibur Morgan.
He uses Roll Eyes, and then that gives Ryder the chance to use her noble phantasm, Bellerophon, in which that's pretty much what that was kind of, I guess that was their plan, because we see another flashback scene where they're strategizing, and I guess we don't hear exactly what they say, but I guess we can assume that was the plan all along, is for Ryder to, because we assumed that the plan was maybe for Ryder to distract Saber enough for Shiro to have a chance to slip by, but it ends up being Shiro is going to defend her as she charges up her noble phantasm and uses it against Saber Alter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then pretty much soon afterwards, like Saber's pretty much like completely down on the ground, and then Shiro just immediately just charges and then just stabs her in the chest, which is also like also a bit heartbreaking.
Yeah, I was like that's one thing I'll say is maybe a bit of a complaint is I wish this was a bit more of like an emotional scene, because it felt like it went by a little bit too quickly. I was kind of hoping for something a little bit, because this is one of the bad ends too, I think. Like, you can also die in a visual novel if you hesitate to stab Saber, because like she says, like it seems like she was coming back to herself, but if you hesitate in the visual novel, you end up being killed. So of course, as sure, like Saber like briefly regains herself and like says Shiro, but Shiro stabs her. But I was kind of hoping for this scene to like kind of play out a little bit longer, just to maybe like Shiro has some flashbacks of Saber as she was before she became Saber Alter or something like that. But unfortunately, it just kind of he stabs her, and then that's pretty much that. So.
Yeah, she pretty much, I mean, she doesn't like fade from existence. She just she
goes back into the Grail, like the mud of the Holy Grail, I guess, or just consumed back.
Yeah, and I remember like in the visual novel, like Saber tells Shiro that she's grateful for him for ending her wretched existence, but then I don't think they
Shiro
put that
just
line
says
in
like
there.
I'm grateful for what you've done for me, and that's basically how that ends.
Yeah. And then, of course, soon afterwards, Rin reaches Sakura, and then she she manages to fight off her shadow figures by using the jeweled sword to pretty much power through her shadows, in which pretty much Sakura gets pretty irritated and frustrated for not getting the better of Rin, because she has this competitive nature against Rin for being better than her.
Yeah, Sakura ends up like venting her frustrations against Rin in this scene.
Yeah, because of all the times she had to endure, even before she got given away by the Matos, she always wanted to try to be better than Rin, but she can't best her no matter what she tried to do.
Yeah, I also like how they had that little flashback scene with them playing cards. You kind of get another brief look at how Sakura looked before she was taken in by the Matos.
Yeah, and of course, she immediately goes over everything that she had to suffer through. I guess she said 11 years of being inside, literally being tortured, in the worm pit, trying to plead and beg for her to try to breathe, being stuck in that pit for long periods of time, and then of course Rin just almost she almost had no sympathy for her, regardless, and she tries to charge against Sakura by sacrificing the jeweled sword, and then charges at her one more time. But then she doesn't go through with it. She immediately gets severely injured by Sakura's shadows, and she completely almost bleeds to death at that point.
Yeah, she couldn't stab Sakura.
Yeah, and this pretty much leads to to Rin admitting that she loves her, and then her regrets for not trying to save her after all that time. And then soon afterwards, Sakura pretty much snaps at this point, because she thought she killed Rin at that moment. Yeah. So she pretty much tries to break free from the Shadow's control long enough for Shiro to reach her, and then Shiro reassures Sakura that that Rin is not dead, and there's a way for her to come back from all of this. But then like I said, Sakura pretty much loses control of the Shadow. I think you see the three looking eyes. I would assume that's Angramayu.
Yeah.
Taking control of the Shadows.
I think that's what that's supposed to be.
Yeah, and then Shiro Shiro tries to reach her in several attempts, and then he for one last time he reveals Archer's arm again, and then he traces Castor's Rule Breaker blade to sever her link to Angramayu.
Yeah, so she ends up, of course, that's what gets her to come back to being her, who she, her true self. Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of a funny scene, because of course after that Sakura's completely naked, and then one of those little, I don't know what you call those fucking things, the little shadow creatures.
Her shadow
one
familiars.
of them comes and transforms itself into into some kind of cloth and covers Sakura's body. and then we also see it at the end of the movie too. It just kind of stuck around, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's maybe the one reason why as to why Ryder's still around.
I forget how she that's another thing I kind of forgot from visual novel. I forgot how she was able to stay around.
Yeah, but let's not forget Sakura has tremendous magical abilities.
Yeah, I know they explained it in the visual novel, but I don't think they actually explained it in the movie how Ryder's just able to still be around.
Yeah, but soon after the scene, Ryder tries to convince Shiro to come back, but then Shiro still has one more job to do to try to destroy the Grail that's still running rampant. If he can't stop it, then pretty much many people are going to end up dying.
It would pretty much be a repeat of Fate Zero. Actually, it's not worse.
So
that I guess Angramayu would come out, and it would actually be worse. But
yeah. So So like Ryder takes both Rin and Sakura to safety, while Shiro like approaches the Grail, but he finds Kirei like sitting down like next to the Grail, saying that he needs the Grail to I guess achieve his purpose in life.
Well, and then Kirei basically makes the argument like because he basically does this thing, it's called the nature versus nurture argument, which is basically, is like, is something evil because of its nature or because of the way it was brought up? And Kirei is basically like, we cannot judge this thing before it is born and has the chance to like actually exist in the world. We can't kill it before it comes into existence and has the, and has actually committed evil or had done evil or committed a crime. So Kirei is basically like, I'm going to protect it and give it the opportunity, give it the chance at life. And Shiro, of course, wants to kill it because, it's inherently evil. But Kirei just wants to see what would happen, pretty much, as his motivation, as far as I understand.
Yeah,
because
so, they just
himself,
immediately just
Kirei himself is like is sort of like an example of like nature versus nurture, like because Kirei is by nature he didn't have anything to do with his upbringing. He is just the way he is because of his nature. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they immediately just start nearly beating each other.
I was so excited for this scene because I remember the visual novel. It's such a great scene in the visual novel. So I was really excited to actually see it animated. They did such a great job. Like, this is another scene I was really excited for because like they did such a great job with this. Because of course, by this point, Shiro's body has like become part of his body has turned into blades. So like as he's fighting Kirei, his body is continuing to like produce like swords coming out of him.
Yeah, and then at certain points, Kirei tried to strike him in certain locations, but then you see blades just pop out wherever he punches or kicks him, and then like Kirei sees it as like a bit of an inconvenience. So the fight just continues to drag on, and then they just immediately just keep hitting each other over and over again. And the longer this fight goes on, Shiro, is just starts slowly, dying because of all the blades popping out of his body.
It's a bit similar to that fight in Fate Zero where Kiritsugu and Kotomine are fighting, but in that scene, Kiritsugu had the time alter, and he could slow down time as like kind of use it against Kirei, where like Shiro doesn't really have that.
Yeah, well, for the case of this fight, like Kirei is like literally dying.
Yeah. Kirei's dying. Like if Kirei were in his, like people argue, and I can totally agree. If Kirei were in his prime as he was in Fate Zero, Kirei would like wipe the floor with Shiro. But because he's older and because he's dying too, like they're both dying. But yeah, he's at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, there was no real winner.
No,
in this
they kind of both.
Like Kirei
Kirei just sort of. It's pretty much timing because like it was the difference of like a second, like where Shiro landed the final blow, where Kirei, if he was a second sooner, would have won, I guess. But
yeah, but because of like what the state these two are in, like Kirei just immediately just goes out first, and and then he immediately declares Shiro the winner of the Holy Grail War because he's like the last master. I mean, that's a bit debatable, but anyway, but yeah, so Shiro like approaches the Grail, and then he tries to destroy it, but then he's immediately dying, and then shortly afterwards Ilya appears out of nowhere, saying that she will protect Shiro at any cost.
Well, before this, we have that death scene with Zoken. He falls into the lava.
Yeah, it's like I was a bit like confused as like how Zoken was still there.
I don't remember how he dies in the visual novel. I just remember like it did play out similarly, where he sees Ilias Fiel in her Heaven's Feel garb, and he dies after that. I forget what kills him though, but yeah, here he falls into lava after he sees that. Yeah,
it's like the last thing he sees is one of the Einspurns.
Yeah, I think
it
was technically. I think he saw just these. That was who he's seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, because like he fears dying, but then like by the time he sees it, like he pretty much accepts it at this point. So like that's pretty much the end of Zoken, and then like I said, shortly afterwards, Ilya appears and pretty much saves Shiro from death by, I guess, extracting his soul from his dying body.
Yeah, like I did like the scene before that too, where like Ilya basically says like I'm your big sister, which is actually true. Ilya technically is his big sister if you think about it.
Yeah,
but yeah, like she's the one that kind of ends up saving Shiro. So,
and then Shiro tries to plead to Ilya to try to stop, because like he knows what's going to happen if she sacrifices herself.
Yeah,
but to no avail. Like she goes through it with it anyway, and then she pretty much like destroys the entire grill, and then saves Shiro at the last minute.
I like how that scene played out too. After that, when she runs, like you see her just like running into Iris Field's arms or something like that. Is pretty cool. And then of course you have Shiro just. You just see his body just being. It seemed like at least his body's just being completely destroyed by the blast, but. I think you also see it looks like Archer's arm like reached out to him or something, and then that's kind of where the scene stops. I was like, that was kind of but and then of course we cut back to Ryder, Sakura, and Tosca outside of the cave, and they're seeing like the light from the explosion, and then like. After that, we kind of have a montage because, like, in the original, they say, of course, after that they're like and then Shiro's body disappeared in the movie. Like, I kind of like how they, at least if you haven't read the visual novel, you're kind of left hanging. You're wondering what happened to Shiro. You kind of are wondering what happened to Shiro in the visual novel too. But I think I remember they said they did find his body and they did something with it. I forget exactly, but I think they actually did say they found it in the visual novel.
Yeah, but from what I saw, like they have like Shiro's soul in like inside of like a bird cage or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, the movie takes place, I guess, a few months after the events of what happened, and then like we see Rin and Sakura walking around town. Trying to catch up.
Yeah, I like how they did that. Like they just had like the two of them catching up, because I remember like in the visual novel after this happens, like they kind of go over like what happened to Rin after that, like as she went to the clock tower and like I guess like pursued her education there, and also I think they also allude to her like dating Waver or something like that. So
yeah, and then but yeah, so they eventually like go to Toko Aozaki's place to give Shiro an artificial body.
Yeah, that's something we should mention
afterwards.
too. Toko Aozaki, like she's referenced in the visual novel, and I was like, when I heard that she was going to be in the movie, I was kind of hoping that we would get like a dialogue scene with her or something, but unfortunately it's just it's basically just a brief scene where we see her like walking by Rin and Sakura in an alleyway, and
yeah, she looks exactly how she looks like in like her her signature ponytail red hair and that trench coat she was wearing, I think, in one of the films. But all we saw was she just passed by Rin and Sakura.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with that. I was kind of hoping we would actually see her talk or something, but yeah, it's just cameo.
Yeah, I mean, this confirms like that Kara no Kyokai is part of the bigger.
I think technically they take place in like parallel universes, but there are like certain things that are still like that like cross over or something. So, but yeah, like yeah, but that's where they retrieve what looks to be like they open up a box and there's like a puppet. And if you know anything about Toko Aozaki, she creates these puppets where she can give place the souls of people inside the puppets, or people or things within the puppets, and the puppets pretty much act exactly like a living thing. So that's pretty much what ends up happening to Shiro. If anybody, at least if they're not visual novel readers, are a little bit, I feel like anime only watchers would be a little bit unclear about that, because you just see the puppet and you of course see Shiro's soul transfer into the puppet, but I guess they could probably assume what might have happened.
Yeah, so shortly afterwards we see Sakura, Rin, and Ryder preparing to go out for picnic, and then of course we finally see Shiro and Sakura together, like, you know, going out, like pretty much like Shiro's like exactly what he looked like before he lost his arm to, you know, and well, before he lost his arm, he got it replaced with archers. So pretty much like we get our happy ending in at the
where they all go to see the Sakura or the cherry blossom trees and
the cherry. Yeah, like as Shiro promised in the last film. But yeah, the way this the movie ended was like, you know, was perfect in my opinion.
It's the same
I
as
thought
the true
this
ending of the visual novel, which, you know, it's like, yeah, like it's the best ending in my opinion. Like, of course, as we know, there's also the normal ending, which is apparently, I think I heard that was actually the ending that Nasu preferred, and I think he's crazy because I hate that ending. Like, that ending it's so depressing and sad. Like,
I mean, he could add it as a little OVA.
He could, but I will say, just be prepared. It will be an unpleasant watch, just because I remember reading it and it was just so depressing. Like, it's just not, like, it's not my preferred ending. I definitely think this one's much better and more satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, pretty much like everyone's all together, like they're all living their normal lives again, and then, you know, like I said, Shiro and Sakura both have their happy ending together. So that's the end of Heaven's Feel.
Yeah. A part of me was actually hoping there might be after credits, but of course there wasn't. So I was like, oh.
No, like I did. I stuck around like at the end of the movie too, but, you know, there was nothing there. Yeah. So a little bit disappointed. But yeah, I thought the way they ended it was
it was like, aside from some things, I think this was like a near perfect adaptation. Honestly, like, at least this movie was. The one that I like had, like, I guess the most issues with adaptation wise is the second movie, just because I felt like there was some important stuff that I felt should not have been cut. But like, honestly, like, this is probably the best adaptation of the Heaven's Feel route we could have asked for. Like, because we got, I think the director behind these movies, it was the same guy that did the Kara Yokai movies, as far as, at least from what I heard. So I think
Tomonori.
Yeah, I think he was a great choice. Definitely like the perfect pick for this route in particular. It was I thought this movie, honestly, like I said on Twitter, if I were to give this a score, it would be a 10 out of 10. Like, I think this was definitely the best out of the trilogy, the best way to end it. I don't think it could have been done any better, to be honest.
Yeah. I thought collectively, like all three movies all together, they're definitely a 10 out of 10 for me.
Like, we pretty much have, like I said, almost a near perfect adaptation of the Heaven's Feel route. So that's what I've been hoping for years. Like, because, you know, it's like Heaven's Feel is my favorite route from the visual novel, so I really like think it deserves like a proper adaptation. So it's finally gotten that. But if I could be a little bit greedy, I really do hope that we one day get like a ufotable version of the Heaven's Feel route. Like, I hope it happens someday, because
don't you mean the Fate route?
Yeah, the Fate route. Sorry. But yeah, the Fate route, or maybe Hollow Ataraxia, I guess, which is something else was rumored.
Although I did hear rumors that, like, in one of the interviews, like, Nasu did recently, he said he's looking to make a ufotable adaptation of the Fate route soon. So we might expect that, or we might expect a Tsukihime remake down the road.
Tsukihime remake is the most unlikely thing to happen to this. The Tsukihime remake is the most unlikely thing to happen, honestly. Like, I can't see it happening anytime soon. Like,
I mean, like, Nasu like hinted that might be his next project, but we'll never know. I mean, the Tsukihime thing has been going on for years. Yeah. Yeah, but, you know, I mean, it's just a wait and see approach on what's going to happen and what Nasu's planning on doing. I don't know.
Nasu's just currently busy raking in all the money from FGO. That's all he's doing right now.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, he's, you know, they're still going on with that story. I don't know how much longer they're gonna keep doing it, but, you know, they're gonna still do it regardless. But it looks like I definitely like, you know, finally watching this film in its entirety. It was it's definitely worth a watch for, like, you know, watching all three films at once whenever I get the chance. Yeah. So
I'm hoping this does eventually, you know, like, well, I know it will, but I'm really excited for whenever this does get the Blu-ray release, because it just sucks at what's going on right now, because if this weren't happening, of course, this film would have come out much earlier, and we probably would have already gotten like the English dub version of it, and it probably would have already like by this point probably at least it would have been announced that the Blu-ray was coming out. But yeah, none of it.
I mean, technically, the movie was already done by the time the whole coronavirus pandemic started. So that was back in like February. March or February. I can't remember. But it was around that time. But it was like the movie was already finished at the time, so there was no, So I think it would have been likely if had they got their way, they could have released the Blu-ray at this time. But it is what it is. I mean, hopefully we'll get it eventually, possibly by summer of next year.
Like I said, this is my favorite one of the trilogy, and also just in terms of the animation, like the animation quality, like I don't understand how with each movie it just keeps getting better, but this one was like really like top tier, honestly. Like it was even better than the last one, which I don't know how that's possible, but it was.
I mean they had every
they pulled out all the stops
they needed. They had all the time they needed to make this, and they pulled it off so perfectly.
Also, of course, like in terms of the music, Yuki Kajiura did the soundtrack for all three movies, and like I really had no problem with any of this. Like all three of them had like just amazing soundtrack. I think Yuki Kajiura was a great choice.
And not to mention Eimer doing the end credit song.
The music in general has just been good for like all of them. I don't really have too much else to say about it. Like it was just it was perfect. It was like I don't like I did kind of address some of the nitpicks I kind of had as a visual novel reader, at least from what I remember of the visual novel. But aside from those, like I don't really have any issues with it.
Yeah, it's a fitting conclusion for all the weight that we had to endure like this entire time. It's just not for this film. It's just all the entire story, in its entirety. I mean, for all the time we've waited.
Like now we technically have all three routes animated. Of course, problem is the Fate route is the Dean version, but take what you can get, I guess. But like and of course, whatever problems people have with the Unlimited Blade Works route, I think it was fine for what it was. But Heaven's Feel, I guess most people would agree is like the best version we could have gotten in terms of the anime adaptation of it. So now we've got Fate Zero, we've got the Fate route for Fate Stay Night, we got the Unlimited Blade Works route, we got Heaven's Feel. Now all we need is like if they ever do Hollow Ataraxia.
I mean, I would assume that might be the shortest one because I honestly can't see it.
It's technically what they consider like a fun disc or a fan disc or whatever it's called. It's not really like I'd assume it would be more like Carnival Phantasm or something, where it's just a lot of different. Because I remember, like from what I've seen in the visual novel, it's just a lot of like, or the Hollow Ataraxia visual novel. It's like a lot of like more like comedic scenes and stuff. It's not really heavy on plot or anything. So I wouldn't imagine it would be.
I mean, like
either.
I mean that there is like a significant plot.
Yeah,
point
there is, but it's kind of, I guess we get more like follow up on Avenger and also like Karen, and we'd actually get to see Bizet. I know the only times we've seen Bizet animated is like Prisma Ilia, and I think we might have saw. I don't know if Karen's shown up in Prisma Ilia, but I know Karen's. I know she also shows up in Carnival Phantasm, of course. But that's pretty much it. So, yeah. But yeah, in terms of this movie, I don't have anything else to say about it. It was fantastic. Like I don't have that many complaints. It was everything I hoped it would be, and I had like really high expectations going in, and I think all of them were pretty much met.
Yeah. I mean, if it isn't for this pandemic right now, I would gladly watch it again.
Yeah,
but
that's why I'm kind of upset that like we're probably gonna have to wait that much longer now for like the Blu-ray release to finally come out, whenever that's gonna be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like I said, like we're grateful that we finally got the opportunity to watch all three films. Regardless of like what's been going on.
I guess the next big ufotable project we can look forward to is the Demon Slayer movie, which I hear is doing really well. I think in Japan, like it's made a lot of money, like millions of dollars. I think in the box office there.
Yeah, it just depends on what the situation is going on, currently in America that we're trying to deal with. But I mean, hopefully it'll get better by then, as based on all the news we're getting. But regardless, like, we're just grateful that we find, regardless of the circumstances we had to go through to see this movie, like, we're entirely grateful we finally got to
because I would have, like, I would have definitely gone out of my way to see this movie if I had to. So I'm glad I finally got to see it.
Definitely, like, 10 out of 10 for me, in my opinion, for all three films collectively. Like, it's like, Spring Song, in its case, it's more of a climax film, if anything, like that. Like, the first two films were mostly build up, and 3 was pretty much the biggest climax of all. So it's definitely, like, it's definitely been worth the wait of all the years we watched this film. So definitely a great one.
It was definitely worth it. I don't have too much else to say about it. I thought it was fantastic. Like, like I said, 10 out of 10 for this movie, and I guess for all movies combined. I guess, I would have to agree 10 out of 10, even though I did, like I said, there were some issues I had with the second one, but it was still great. Like, it was still a fantastic movie, regardless of the issues I had with it. I liked it, like pretty much everything else about it, but like I said, hopefully, I'm not really sure what the future holds in terms of whatever Ufotable decides to do next with the Fate franchise in particular. I'm pretty sure it seems like a lot of their attention right now might probably be more so on Demon Slayer, but I guess we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully, like I said, I'm hoping for us to eventually either get an adaptation of Fate Route, or we get Hollow Ataraxia, whatever happens. But yeah, either that or I don't know, maybe Tsukihime, but I think that's even less likely, to be honest, because Tsukihime is just constantly ignored and opposed to, like, the Fate franchise, but which sucks because pretty much everybody unfortunately has forgotten about it. But I'm still holding out hope that one day we will either get like the anime adaptation of a new anime adaptation of Tsukihime that doesn't suck, or we finally get the remake, which I don't know when that's going to happen, but hopefully it happens soon. Nasu will probably just continue to tease us about it, though, for years to come, which he's been doing. But yeah, like I hopefully you guys hopefully people listening have seen the movie, because we pretty much spoiled everything. But I will just say this is a spoiler review of the movie, so I don't really have anything else to say. So I guess until next time, we will see you all later.